Welcome to the Academy of Esports podcast. I am your host, James O'Hagan, and this week I get to bring in Dr. Rachel Kowert. She is the research director at Take This. And this is her, I think we figured out, third time on the podcast. And this is to prelude our symposium at Purdue University, April 8th and 9th. Dr. Kowert is going to be a panelist with one of our other previous interviews, Dr. Kelly Dunlap. Dr. Rachel Kowert, thank you for being a guest on the Academy of Esports podcast today.
Hey, thanks for having me back.
It is so fun to have you back here. The whole purpose of this is, again, to give students and participants at the, and anybody else who's just downloads the podcast in general, an opportunity to not, sometimes people get lost in a panel, and we want to make sure that we give a dedicated time to our panelists to make sure that they have time to share what their great thoughts or ideas are to extend the conference. But I like to ask questions too about just the person. And I know, having been a previous guest on Dr. Kowert's podcast, she does hers at the end. I do mine at the beginning now. So, Dr. Kowert, I have 4 questions to get us started today. Number 1, what is a game, and it doesn't have to be a video game, that stands out as having been important to you at some point in your life, and why was that experience meaningful? And I'm going to guess I know the answer. Is it okay if I guess what it is?
Yeah, sure.
Is it Final Fantasy IV?
Not 4. Oh, it's 6. Final Fantasy 6.
6.
Yes.
Okay.
4 is also excellent, though.
Yes.
Final Fantasy 6 was very important to me because it was the game that really spawned my love for role-playing games, for RPGs, which is still today my most favorite genre to play. And it is the best of the Final Fantasy series. I will die on that hill.
I'm a 7 person.
7's a close second. What? Okay, if your 7 is number 1, what's number 2 and number 3?
10.
10 is great.
2.
10 is great. Yes.
And I don't have a third.
You don't have a third? I would go 6, 7, 10.
Okay.
Myself.
All right. Well, with that question follow up, and this is something that may be totally eccentric or maybe it's quite traditional, but what is your superpower, that thing you do better than most people, or what do you wish you could do?
Oh, what? I think I can do more in 1 hour of the day than most people. That's probably, that's definitely a superpower. Sometimes I look back and I think, how was I so productive? I'm not sure how it happened. So I think I'm just really good at like organizing my day and getting a lot of stuff done in a short amount of time.
Fantastic. That's a great one to have.
It is, to be honest. With 3 kids, you need that one or you get nothing done.
And for some of us, it's like, what did I get? How did I only get this little bit done? Like, really? It's only been an hour and I haven't started yet? Okay. What's that one song, whenever it's your speakers, that you're going to sing along to, whether well or poorly?
Oh, that could be a lot of songs right now. It is absolutely We Don't Talk About Bruno.
We don't what?
We Don't Talk About Bruno from Encanto. It is on 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It's the new Disney movie. The music was by Lin-Manuel Miranda, who's the one who did Hamilton music. And it's so catchy and so fun. And I listen to it multiple times a day because my kids won't stop asking for it.
For my oldest, when she was a little one, I had to listen to a tape because we had the van with the VCR in it, and I had to listen to The Little Mermaid for 2.5 years.
There you go. So I'm right now, I'm a good 6 weeks into Encanto, I would say. So maybe we got another 2.5 years to go.
All right. And this is starting to get into the conversation a little bit more, but what is one thing about your field that surprises people when they first hear about it? Again, you're a research psychologist, and when I interviewed Dr. Kelly Dunlap, she is a clinical psychologist, and I didn't think that there was a difference until it was explained to me that yes, there is a difference.
There is a big difference.
Yeah. So as a research psychologist, what's that thing that surprises people?
That I don't see clients, which is the main difference between me and Dr. Dunlap. I think when I tell people I'm a research psychologist, the first question they ask is like, oh, you see clients? No, I see numbers and I love my numbers, and that is the extent of it. So that's probably the biggest misconception. Well, and
I guess not seeing clients is one thing, but right now, again, the last time we talked, and it seems like, it was probably about a year and a half ago, I'm guessing, is when we last had an interview or a conversation. things don't really change, do they? No, in fact, they change all the time. All things are changing and we are changing with them. Omnia mutantur nocet multamer and illis. So let me ask you this. What are you most curious about, or are you researching at this time, and why? Because it must be, like I said, you're always out there putting out great content, sharing fantastic ideas. I get a message from Fiona all the time that says, "Oh, you need to read this." So what is the thing that you're most curious about right now in researching?
Right now, things have changed since the last time we talked. My work has pivoted to looking at the landscape of extremist behavior, radicalization, and recruitment in gaming spaces specifically. And I'm going to be talking about that at GDC in 2 weeks with Alex Newhouse, who is the Deputy Director of the Middlebury Institute for Counterterrorism Research. So over the last year and a half, there's been a lot of interest in the way that the internet is used for radicalization and recruitment. And then there was a lot of concern about games specifically. And I saw this ADL report, it was 2019, and it said 1 in 4 game players are exposed to white supremacist ideology while they're playing games. And I literally stopped reading. I was like, it can't be 1 in 4. 1 in 4? That is like so high to me. It was unbelievable. So I reached out to my colleague at ADL and he was like, yeah, that's what the numbers say. And ever since then, I've been on that train and really trying to figure out what's at the heart of it, what's the state of it, should we be concerned, and how should we be addressing these problems? So yeah, I've been looking at that a lot for the last couple of years, and it's all going to culminate, like I said, in a couple of weeks in this GDC talk.
And it's important to realize too, because I've referenced that report as well in the past. I missed that part of the report, but what stuck with me in that report, and maybe it's important for people to hear this as well too, is while the Anti-Defamation League report does focus in a lot of the negatives, I want to say it was 74% of people have been harassed in some way in an online gaming space. But it's important to also juxtapose that with something like 88% of people have also had a very positive experience in online spaces.
Yes, which I think comes as a surprise. That it doesn't come as a surprise to me because that's always been my area of interest, but it comes as a surprise to a lot of people to hear that number is so high. And I know you and I both are very well aware of the social benefits of games, but it's great to see it like in a statistic that you can just, pull out of your pocket.
Yeah, and again, if you have not, I'll make sure to link this report into the show notes because I think it is very vital that if you have not checked it out, that it does, I think, do a very good job of looking at the landscape. The one thing that I thought the report missed on, because it did look at just the general public, is they didn't address really what happens in schools.
No, it did not.
How the gaming space is so radically different when it's properly implemented. And probably radical isn't the word I should probably use when I talk about
Not in this context.
Not in this context. But it is so vital that, as we're researching these spaces, to also realize that space that they're talking about in that report isn't necessarily the school experience, and is in a lot of the ways the reason why we want to set up these spaces in our schools, because they become places to teach kids what to watch for and how to operate in online spaces. Is that something that I'm not going to say you're researching, but is anybody researching the, I guess, educational spaces of games?
Yes, there's a whole field of people doing that. That's not my specific area of expertise, but I have several colleagues who are looking at, how games can be used for teamwork among students, for instance, any game, any genre, how these can be used and leveraged to foster these kind of life skills, soft skills. I'm not sure exactly what soft skills, I guess they call them.
Soft skills, yeah.
Yeah. And there's also researchers looking at like how to use games specifically for specific educational purposes. Like there's a couple teachers I met a few years ago who are using The Walking Dead by Telltale Games to teach philosophy and decision-making and moral decision-making and that kind of stuff. So it's a really cool area of research, and it is definitely growing.
I say the same thing with Among Us. Among Us is something that we use at the elementary level to find out, teach kids, again, how to speak, in turns, how to persuade people. Also, I'll jokingly say we find who the sociopaths are at a very young age.
How to lie.
Yeah, who can lie with a straight face, exactly.
Yeah.
No, I say that jokingly. The kids don't do that. But how is that? How are these? I guess these transformation of spaces, again, coming out of the pandemic, where we found a lot of these spaces where people and kids especially were coming to for socialization. Is that raising any concerns around the role of technology in our lives as we are coming post-pandemic, especially? Have we shifted our mindsets to being even more, I guess, digital, while before the pandemic, it was like parents were like so concerned about screen time. Everybody was so concerned about screen time. And now it seems like screen time has completely gone away.
Yeah. I mean, have you found that to be your experience? I would love that to be a reflection of reality. I mean, I'm not so sure. At the beginning, pre-pandemic, 100% everyone's screen time, screen time. Then the pandemic hit and everyone was like, maybe screen time's not so bad. We saw these headlines from, Good Housekeeping and Parenting Magazine that were saying games are great, play games with your kids. And it was really kind of a transformative moment. And I was so hopeful that these discussions were going to move away from just like, are screens bad, to more nuanced discussions about like ways we can use screens for education. And maybe the concern is more about stranger danger than just kind of this amorphous screen time metric. But I find that we're returning right back to where we were, honestly. I have, maybe it's just the network because I'm a parent of young children and I'm in a network of a lot of moms who are not as, tech savvy or obviously like in this field. And they have the concerns of, even during the pandemic, my child is playing too much Minecraft. And I'm like, this is your best possible scenario, lady. Like, it's great that your kid is playing Minecraft. And he's playing with people that he knows and that sort of thing. So I don't know. I think that maybe slightly the conversation has changed, but we still see these discussions about just kind of blanket statements in and around screen time.
Well, and I see it every day because I oversee our virtual program in the Racine Unified School District, where I do get I have people come to me and say, well, why aren't you doing synchronous classes where kids are literally sitting in front of computers while teachers talk to them, lecture them? Mm-hmm. And I say, we have elements of that, but really in our virtual space, we have our kids, the expectation really is that they're on a computer for only about an hour and a half a day versus during the pandemic where, my gosh, there were kids who were just, had to be plugged in because they were getting lectured to, talked at for 6.5, 7 hours a day. Mm-hmm. Again, I think it's important, as you brought up, to talk about and reflect on the quality of that screen time. Mm-hmm. Is it just consumerism? Are you just sitting there watching YouTube or, I don't know, binging through Witcher again?
You do that one for me, sir. Yes.
Yeah, for like
Witcher
the third or fourth time.
Always okay. Yes.
I have not watched it yet. I'm sorry. But I'll tell you, I will make you this deal. You start watching the Last Kingdom, I will go through all of The Witcher.
Deal.
Okay. And then we will report back after.
We will.
After. But yeah, I think you're bringing up a really good thing too, because as we've been talking about gaming and esports culture and things of that, I think that parents really have not been, they're engaged, but they're not engaged in ways I think that are necessarily bringing the level up as to what the experience could be. As you alluded to, there's a lot of parents who are slipping back to, okay, screen time.
Yeah.
So how can parents, I guess, in this day and age, again, post-pandemic and finding out that games really aren't, or hopefully they are seeing that games are so important, how can parents use gaming to better connect with their kids?
If they're not playing with them, which some of them don't, and that's okay, they're at least engaging in conversation about them. I mean, games often are considered this thing that's kind of like separate. Like, if I don't really understand it and I don't really know what's going on, I'm just not going to mess with it. I'm just going to be like, okay, don't play more than an hour a day and, don't talk to strangers. But really, we should be engaging. What are you playing? Why are you playing? Who are you playing with? And have these conversations. And I make this analogy often, but I stand by it. If you can sit through a 3-year-old soccer game, you can sit through 3 minutes of talking about Minecraft with your child. A 3-year-old soccer game, kids don't know where the ball goes. It is the worst thing to watch. I have a 3-year-old. I can say it. It's true. Yeah, they're cute in their outfits, but they don't know what they're doing.
I don't understand soccer.
It's probably, yeah, exactly. I honestly don't really understand Minecraft that much. I don't play it. I was like kind of older by the time it came out, but my daughter loves it. And so, yeah, I ask her about Minecraft and I learn through her and she loves to be engaged about it. And I've learned a lot. I've learned how to turn off the chat. I've learned how to get a private realm. These things are really important. So as a parent, you need to be engaged, either playing with them, asking about them, watching over their shoulder, especially esports. How's it going with your team? What are you playing now? What roles are you playing? Are you getting better? Just like any other sport, just ask those questions.
And I think where a lot of parents miss is they think, oh, this is so foreign to me. This isn't my space.
Exactly.
I'll tell you, having parents engaged in our high school program that we have here in Racine has been so beneficial in the sense that it's been the conversation has been led by a lot of the students just because the kids are interested in it and the parents want to find out about it. What I need to do a better job on is actually formalizing that engagement with parents, especially when people are talking about like, oh, how do I get my program funded, or where do I find these community resources? Your community is there if you engage them, and the parents, I tell you, if you bring them along on this journey into your, whether it's your school club, it doesn't have to be like a formal like competitive thing, but even just the club aspect of things, where again the socialization is so important. You'd be surprised at just how, if parents see their children positively engaged, especially now coming out, and being able to have a conversation maybe about screen time. Hey, you're playing for 7-8 hours a day. We should really break this up probably, or have a schedule. I think it makes huge differences, not just in the quality of play, but also in, I guess, the feelings that kids may have that their interests are being honored. I think that's the biggest thing that a lot of people miss, is that you tell a kid that's a waste of time. And we very rarely tell people things are a waste of time. And what happens when you get told things are a waste of time? You end up, trying to do it more, or hiding it away in a basement or wherever.
Right. So. And I think it is about overcoming that hurdle of it being foreign, and just changing our perspective and thinking about it as just another hobby or another activity. Parents don't necessarily know much about football or hockey or baseball or playing the clarinet or like all these other things that our children do. So it's just about not considering it something like totally separate from those other activities.
Yeah, I have not. I do not understand the French horn. I was in marching band for years, and I see my daughter playing it, and I'm like, okay, I was a tuba player. Your instrument looks like I should know how to play it, but everything's completely different on it. So, but I still support her nonetheless. All right. So again, as we're coming up to the end of our time together, and Dr. Kowert, I really appreciate. I'm sorry that you will not be on the Purdue campus for April 8th. But again, I think that we need to get you down to West Lafayette, Indiana. It doesn't sound like the place that people would put on their bucket list of places to go. But again, I went to Purdue. I would love to have the opportunity to take you around campus.
Love to be there. Yes.
Right. So as we start to wrap up, just a couple of other wrap-up questions here. And this is we're probably, as we're wrapping up, and then this is probably going to become like a 10-minute segment. As part of making experiences for young people better through collaboration, is there an organization or a person doing great things in your field that you'd like us to give shout outs to, or give attention to, or somebody who you want to pitch as like, hey, this is somebody you should be following? I've already done the Kelly Dunlap podcast episode, so Kelly's already been taken. But
I was going to pitch Kelly, honestly.
Tell you what, to somebody who may be considering wanting to come to the conference, or is like, I don't know if I want to touch on this episode. Let's pitch Kelly. Okay.
I was going to pitch Kelly because she's so wonderful. Dr. Kelly Dunlap is a clinical psychologist and also a researcher, and also teaches game design. She's like the trifecta when it comes to studying and researching and talking about games and mental health. So I would absolutely recommend people follow her for interesting content. She made all my GDC slides beautiful because she has background in game design. And she was like, do you want me to make your slides beautiful? And I was like, oh, it's okay. If you have time, you don't have to do it. And let me tell you, she made these slides so beautiful just out of the kindness of her heart. Dr. Kelly Dunlap, 100, grade A, 100%. Everyone should follow her.
And no offense, but you cannot fangirl during the panel since you both will be on it.
I work with her every day. All my fangirls, I fangirl when she's not around. I will definitely keep my composure.
Okay, but again, I'm the one who's emceeing and asking the questions, so please just include me in the joke if you can, if there's some inside stuff going on.
Okay.
As we start to sign off for this week's episode, any final thoughts you want to leave? Again, this could turn into a 10-minute segment. I know how we can kind of get into a rabbit hole.
Final thoughts. I just hope that this discussion has brought again to light the fact that games are one of many things that we do. Like any other activity, there are positives and there are negatives, but we just have to remain engaged and informed. And while that often means experiencing it and playing it, it doesn't have to. Also, watch The Witcher.
Yes, I will. I promise. I will. I will report back to you as I go through every episode. I will just send you a note that just
live
says
tweets. I want the live tweets.
And I will give you a recommendation for a game that I got into, Elden Ring.
You think I have time for that?
No, you don't, but you should.
I don't. I hear good things. Yeah, I hear good things.
All right, Dr. Rachel Kowert, thank you for being, sorry, before we sign up, April 8th and 9th, Purdue University Symposium on Esports and Gaming. Games make a difference. Dr. Kowert will be a panelist. Dr. Rachel Kowert, thank you for being a guest on the Academy of Esports podcast today.
Thanks for having me.
That will do it for this week on the Academy of Esports. I've been your host, James O'Hagan. Esports are organized competitive video games allowing schools to redefine their athletic culture, diversify opportunities for student participation, promote good physical and mental health, increase collegiate scholarship pathways, and play games. We can never forget the importance of play. The mission of the Academy of Esports is to support these ideals. The vision of the Academy of Esports is for all students to experience the fun and joy of playing competitive video games. You may follow me on Twitter at Jim O'Hagan. That's at JIMOHAGAN, and through the Academy of Esports account at TAO Esports. It's a great way to get the latest blog posts, podcast episodes, and news coming out of esports and education. And remember, you can continue your engagement by going to www.taoesports.com. You can also connect through Facebook at www.facebook.com/TAOesports. Thanks again for listening, and I look forward to our time again next week.